very good evening. You're watching Primetime News on TV One live and direct from our Newsfirst studios in Colombo. Bringing you the news, I'm Joed Abdin.
And I'm Chalani Ratnavira. Let's take a look at your headlines for tonight.
The headlines on Newsfirst.
Heavy rain exceeds 150 millimeters across several areas. IUSF storm Malwana mansion allegedly linked to Brazil. Court rejects objection. Money laundering case against Yoshitha continues. Trump in China. Cooperation key to stability, says she.
This is extreme weather.
And on to those stories in detail now. In your top story this evening, the Department of Irrigation has urged residents living on either sides of Atmanugala Oya and Ma Oya to remain vigilant as water levels in both rivers continue to rise.
Now, Director of the Hydrology Division of the Irrigation Department, L.S. Surya Bandara, said that if heavy rainfall continues tonight at the river basins, there could be a risk of minor flooding. We now cross over to Sandro Ferdinando for the latest weather updates.
Thank you, Charlie. So if you look at the latest weather updates, spill gates of 19 major reservoirs and 18 medium-scale reservoirs across the country have been opened as heavy rains continue. The Department of Meteorology says that rainy weather conditions is due to the low-pressure area located northeast of Sri Lanka, which is expected to move away from the country during the next 48 hours. Meanwhile, the department also issued a red alert warning this evening for heavy rains, and accordingly, very heavy showers above 150 millimeters are likely at some places in the western, Sabaragamu and northwestern provinces and in Kandy, Nuwara and Galle and Matha districts. Heavy showers above 100 millimeters are likely at some places in the northern province. The department further warned that the low-pressure system will continue to keep skies over most parts of the country and heavily clouded. Therefore, the department has urged the general public to take adequate precautions to minimize damages caused by heavy rain, strong winds and thunder showers. Meanwhile, landslide warnings have also been issued to 11 districts remain in effect, and residents in high-risk areas, particularly in Galle, Kalutara, Kurunegala and Ratnapura districts under level 2 alerts are advised to remain vigilant. Also, all schools in the Hatton Education Zone will be closed today. This decision was announced by the acting Zonal Education Director after taking into consideration the heavy rainfall experienced across Hatton. Let's now take a look at how the weather forecast and the weather situation has unfolded across Sri Lanka.
Several areas in Puttalam town were inundated by floodwaters by this afternoon, as heavy rainfall continued to impact multiple parts of the country over the past 24 hours. Railway services along the Puttalam line were again restricted up to Chillout railway station today, with authorities taking the decision due to prevailing conditions. Flooding was also reported in the Naliad area along the Bulat Singhala Molakawa road. In Kalutara, overflow from the Dummalamudra Canal in the Payagala Alagawat area caused a number of houses and low-lying lands to be submerged. The irrigation department stated that 18 major reservoirs are currently spilling due to the ongoing heavy rains. Director of the Water Management Division, HMPSD Herath, further noted that 18 medium-scale reservoirs are also spilling. At the Rajangane Reservoir, 4 spill gates remain open, releasing water into the Kala Oya. Spill gates at the Angamur Reservoir also remain open, with water discharged through the Malwatoya and the Kala Oya. Authorities have advised residents living in low-lying areas along the banks of the Kala Oya to remain vigilant. 2 spill gates of the Kala Vava Reservoir were also open. One spill gate of the Kukuleganga Reservoir has been opened due to heavy rains in the Kalavana area. Meanwhile, adverse weather conditions were also observed in Kandy earlier today. In a separate incident, a 53-year-old man who had gone fishing yesterday evening in the Unanviti area of Naguragol has died.
This is extreme weather.
On to more local news, a group representing the Inter-University Students' Federation entered a property in Malwana today, which was allegedly linked to former Minister Basil Rajapaksa and later reported to have no identified owner. The IUSF are demanding that properties allegedly acquired using public funds be handed back to the people.
Now, the group of students stated that such properties should be utilized to address the shortage of space and accommodation facilities within universities, including the establishment of proper faculty complexes and student hostels.
Police set up roadblocks to prevent a group of representatives from the Inter-University Students' Federation from entering the Malwana property. Following the exchange, representatives of the Inter-University Students' Federation pushed past the police barricades and entered the land where the Malwana property is located.
Former politicians and rulers enjoyed luxuries like this using public tax money. You can clearly see the condition of this house today. As the Inter-University Students' Federation, we came here today and took control of this land in Malwana, which allegedly belonged to Basil Rajapaksa. This struggle will not stop here. There are many more such properties across the country. We will continue this fight until those properties are handed over to the people and until we achieve victory.
Over the past few months, the Inter-University Students' Federation has repeatedly staged protests calling for universities to be expanded in line with the growing number of students and academic programs.
It is not enough for the government to simply take over this property. The public must be able to directly benefit from it and enjoy its outcomes. That is why we believe the government should intervene and allocate this land, which has been taken over by the state, to the state university system. At the same time, this is only a symbolic struggle. We are aware that there are other such properties that have been taken over by the government. We know of one located on Urutora Road in Gampha, which is also allegedly linked to Basil Rajapaksa. However, at present, that property too has no identified owner and has been taken over by the state. We are also aware of another property in the Katharagama area. During legal proceedings, we learned that the electricity bill for this property is registered under the name G. Rajapaksa. We know who that refers to. However, since the owners were unable to explain before court how these assets were acquired, these properties have now been taken up over by the government. Therefore, today, as the Inter-University Students' Federation, we remind the government that this is only a symbolic struggle. From today onwards, we will begin a continuous protest on this land, and we will not stop this fight until the property is handed over for public benefit.
The Colombo High Court today ruled that legal proceedings against Yoshitha Rajapaksa can continue in a case concerning alleged money laundering involving over 73 million rupees, despite the release of co-accused Daisy Forrest on medical grounds. The decision was delivered by High Court Judge Udesh Ranatunga, who rejected a preliminary objection filed by Rajapaksa challenging the continuation of the case.
The charges against Yoshitha Rajapaksa relate to the alleged acquisition of assets worth nearly 73.5 million rupees between the 9th of October 2012 and the 29th of August 2013 in the Rajagiriya and Bambalapiti areas in violation of Section 3(1) and Section 3(2) of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Daisy Forrest, Rajapaksa's grandmother and the second accused in the case, was released after the court considered medical reports stating that she was not mentally fit to stand trial. The defense had argued that the case could not proceed without Forrest. However, in his ruling, High Court Judge Udesh Ranatunga clarified that her release was not an acquittal but a procedural step due to her condition. Excerpt.
The second accused, Daisy Forrest, was released after considering medical reports indicating that she is not mentally fit to face trial. This was not an acquittal due to lack of evidence. Therefore, under Section 194 of the Code of Criminal Procedure, her release cannot be considered as an acquittal. It merely halts proceedings against her. Accordingly, there is no legal impediment to proceed with the conspiracy charge against the accused Yoshitha Rajapaksa.
End of excerpt. Following the ruling, the court ordered that the indictment against Rajapaksa be read in open court, after which he pleaded not guilty. Presenting the opening statement for the prosecution, Deputy Solicitor General Janaka Bandara outlined the case, stating that the prosecution intends to prove that Rajapaksa unlawfully acquired 5 land plots. Excerpt.
The prosecution intends to establish that the accused illegally acquired 5 land plots. These include properties valued at 35.99 million rupees in Sirimal Uyana Ratmalana, 4.5 million rupees worth 12.04 Perch property, and 22.5 million rupees property in Dehiwala, West Kaudana, a 3.5 million rupee property and a 4.5 million rupee land in Mihindumavata, Dehiwala.
End of excerpt. He further noted that 4 of the land plots in Attidia, Kaudana were located adjacent to a property belonging to Shiranti Rajapaksa. Deputy Solicitor General Janaka Bandara also provided a background on Daisy Forrest, who was named as an accused and later released. Excerpt.
Daisy Forrest was born in 1928 in the Newbury estate in Aller. Her father was Robert Forrest. She had worked as a kitchen employee at Suleiman Hospital and later as a hostel matron at St. Thomas's College between 1976 and 1985, earning a monthly salary between 2,300 rupees and 7,300 rupees. She had not been employed after 1986 and had accumulated only 3,300 rupees through the Employees Provident Fund. A person of this background would not have had the financial capacity to purchase properties valued at over 73 million rupees.
End of excerpt. Further details regarding the financial position of Yoshitha Rajapaksa were presented before court by the Deputy Solicitor General as part of ongoing proceedings into the alleged acquisition of assets. Excerpt.
The accused was born in 1983. At the time of acquiring the 5 land plots, he was 25 years old. He joined the Navy as a cadet officer and rose to the rank of lieutenant. Over 7.5 million rupees earned as a salary in his National Savings Bank account, and that money has not been withdrawn. We intend to prove through evidence the income he earned as a rugby player and from the stock market. However, as a public servant, he did not have the financial capacity to acquire properties valued at over 73 million rupees.
End of excerpt. Under the direction of Deputy Solicitor General Janaka Bandara, witnesses Madhuka Veerasinghe and Sandhuni Asiri Petiagoda also gave evidence in court. They acknowledged that they had been appointed to manage the assets of Daisy Forrest following a case filed at the Nugegoda District Court. The witnesses stated that while they carried out property management duties, they were not aware of the full extent of Daisy Forrest's assets. Responding to a question raised by the Deputy Solicitor General on whether a bag of gemstones was among her possessions, the witness stated that she had no knowledge of such an item. Further evidence in the case had been postponed until the 22nd of May.
The Colombo Crimes Division informed the 4th Magistrates Court that no data recordings were available from the CCTV camera system at the residence of former cricketer Aravinda De Silva, where former Sri Lankan Airlines CEO Kapila Chandrasena was found dead. This was revealed as investigators presented progress in the ongoing probe into the death.
Magisterial inquest into former Sri Lankan airline CEO Kapila Chandrasena's death resumed before the Fourth Magistrates Court. Investigating officers told court, acting on a search warrant, they inspected a residence in Hyde Park believed to belong to Chandrasena. They stated that the house is registered under his wife's name and that 2 laptops and several documents recovered from the premises were taken into custody as case material. They stated that the house is registered under his wife's name and that 2 laptops and several documents recovered from the premises were taken into custody. Officers further informed court that 2 types of unlabeled medication wrapped in paper and found at the scene of death would be sent to the government analyst for examination. During proceedings, the magistrate inquired whether all CCTV footage from the residence where Chandrasena was found had been obtained by investigators. In response, officers stated that while the CCTV system at the house was operational, investigations revealed that no data had been recorded. However, they noted that footage from several nearby houses had been reviewed. They told court that this footage clearly showed individuals entering and leaving the residence. 6 witnesses were called to testify at today's inquiry. The 4th witness, attorney at law Priyantha Upali Amarasinghe, testified that he was the first to see Chandrasena deceased.
When I opened the door, I saw the bed was empty. The bed sheets were disturbed, almost crumpled. As no one was on the bed, I looked around the room and noticed a door on the left side with something like a dark green tie hanging from the top. That was what I first saw. Then there was a blue chair turned towards the door. This was my first experience of something like this, and I was frightened. On the chair, I saw something like a head. Part of the cloth tied above the door was also around the neck. Aravinda's wife was near the door at the time. I spoke to her and came out of the room. Aravinda arrived shortly after. I told him that Kapil appeared to be dead. I saw he was also shocked. I told him to quickly call a doctor, as my immediate thought was that if there was any chance he was alive, we should try to save him.
Dr. Lakshani Yashodha Leonage testified that Chandrasena had been dead for approximately 1 or 2 hours at the time she examined him.
The bed was empty. When I moved a little further, I saw a door on the left with a chair turned towards it. Near the chair, a person had fallen. I examined him to check for signs of life. Breathing had stopped, and one side of the face was pressed against the chair. There was no pulse. When I lifted his right arm, it was partially stiff. The pupil in the right eye was dilated and fixed. At the time of my examination, the person was already dead. The neck was compressed with a piece of cloth.
A domestic worker at Chandrasena's residence, Manatunga Mudiyanselage Somadasa, testified that no external visitors had come to meet Chandrasena from the time he returned to his Barnes residence on the 6th of May after securing bail until he left for Aravinda De Silva's residence on the 7th of May. Another domestic worker, Subram Pramila, also testified.
Around 11:30 p.m., Mr. Kapila called me. He said he would send a vehicle and asked me to prepare some clothes for the night. Later, he called again and told me to include 2 pairs of spectacles, some medicine and a blue belt kept under his sarong. That belt was something he used for exercise. I packed everything into a bag. After that, a vehicle came and I handed over the bag.
Statements were also recorded from 2 drivers of Aravinda De Silva who transported the bag containing clothes, medicine and the belt from Chandrasena's residence to De Silva's house. Further hearings in the case are scheduled for the 19th of May.
The International Monetary Fund expects its executive board to meet in the coming weeks to consider approval of Sri Lanka's combined 5th and 6th review under the extended fund facility, a decision that could unlock approximately $700 million in financing for the country.
Julie Kozak, director of the IMF Communications Department, made this comment in response to a question raised by Newsfirst Zulfiq Farzan.
Hi, Julie. Thank you for taking my question. A quick question on Sri Lanka. When will Sri Lanka's next review be taken up by the IMF Executive Board? And given the current situation across the world and Sri Lanka reportedly paying 6 times more than what it paid for fuel imports earlier this year, is the IMF looking at adjusting the existing program or renewing it? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so what I can say on Sri Lanka is just to remind everyone that on April 9th, the IMF team and the Sri Lankan authorities reached a staff-level agreement for a combined 5th and 6th review under the EFF. The review is, of course, review completion is subject to approval by our executive board. We expect the board meeting to take place in the coming weeks. There were a few prior actions that needed to be completed before we could bring the program to our executive board. And these were the restoration of the cost recovery, electricity and fuel pricing, while also protecting the vulnerable. So there was sort of two parts to moving to cost recovery. It was moving to cost recovery, but also ensuring that the vulnerable population was protected, and completing the financing assurances review. Once the review is approved by our executive board, Sri Lanka will have access to about $700 million in financing. And again, we expect that the board meeting will take place in the coming weeks. And then on the question about Zulfik, your second question. What I can say here, and this is more on the kind of flexibility and adjusting the program, I think here what I want to say is that, first to say that Sri Lanka has been hit by two very large shocks. First, Cyclone Ditwa, which was an enormous shock for the economy, but also a humanitarian shock for the people of Sri Lanka. It was really tragic and devastating for the people. And now it is affected, of course, by the war in the Middle East. The Sri Lankan economy and the Sri Lankan people have really shown remarkable resilience through these shocks. And the ambitious reforms that Sri Lanka has been painstakingly taking over the last several years under the program are bearing fruit. And part of the economic resilience that we're seeing and the strong outcomes that we're seeing for the Sri Lankan economy are underpinned by these reforms. I just want to highlight in particular that fiscal performance in 2025 has been particularly strong in Sri Lanka. And this has been supported very much on the revenue side. The debt restructuring is nearly complete. The economy grew by 5% in 2025. And inflation, which had been in deflationary, negative territory, signaling some ongoing weaknesses in the economy, has now returned to positive territory. And we expect the debt to GDP ratio to be on a downward trajectory. So all of this to say that the Sri Lankan economy is performing well. The reform commitment is strong by the authorities. And we will continue to work very closely with the authorities to assess how we can best continue to support them. We're very committed to supporting Sri Lanka and the Sri Lankan people as they seek to achieve a more stable economy. And so we will continue to work very closely with them, and our commitment is unwavering in supporting Sri Lanka.
We have been bringing to your attention the developments from US President Donald Trump's visit to China since the day's proceedings commenced this morning. Well, day's events concluded with a state banquet for Trump and his delegation at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing.
Trump's two-day visit to China is the first by US President since his previous one in 2017. We now have Naveksha Gunarsekar in the studio to take us through what happened in Beijing.
Thank you, Duad and Shalini. Well, China and the United States agreed on a new vision to build a constructive relationship of strategic stability during high-level talks between President Xi Jinping and US President Donald Trump in Beijing, marking a key outcome of the American leader's state visit. Now, at the same time, Trump invited Xi to pay a return visit to the White House. The US President even mentioned a specific date being the 24th of September.
Chinese President Xi Jinping is walking towards the square outside the East Gate of the Great Hall of the People to welcome US President Donald Trump.
Chinese President Xi held a welcome ceremony for President Trump on the square outside the eastern entrance of the Great Hall of the People.
Said last met face to face.
Watching closely.
And US.
As President Trump arrived, honor guards lined up in salutation. After the two presidents stepped onto the reviewing stand, the military band played the national anthems of China and the United States. A 21-gun salute was performed on the Tiananmen Square. President Trump reviewed the Guard of Honor of the People's Liberation Army and watched the march past in President Xi's company.
Highly disciplined part of the ceremony, let's say. The rouge, the pace, the formation and the music all fit in a solemn manner and harmony.
Now the younger generation of China are showing their warm welcome to the friend from afar, US President Donald Trump.
Thereafter, President Xi Jinping held talks with US President Donald J. Trump at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing.
Where the two presidents will meet.
We've had a fantastic relationship. We've gotten along. When there were difficulties, we worked it out. I would call you and you would call me. And whenever we had a problem, people don't know, whenever we had a problem, we worked that out very quickly. And we're going to have a fantastic future together. Such respect for China, the job you've done. You're a great leader. I say it to everybody. You're a great leader. Sometimes people don't like me saying it, but I say it anyway because it's true. I only say the truth.
President Trump, I'm very pleased to meet you in Beijing. Welcome back to China after 9 years. The whole world is watching our meeting. Currently, transformation not seen in a century is accelerating across the globe, and the international situation is fluid and turbulent. The world has come to a new crossroads. Can China and the United States overcome the Thucydides trap and create a new paradigm of major country relations? Can we meet global challenges together and provide more stability for the world? Can we, in the interests of the well-being of our two peoples and the future of humanity, build a brighter future together for our bilateral relations? These are the questions vital to history, to the world, and to the people. They are the questions of our times that you and I need to answer as leaders of major countries.
The US is yet to comment on the discussions, but the Chinese Foreign Ministry released a readout. According to the ministry, Xi stressed that the Taiwan issue is the most important one in China-US relations. Quote-unquote, if handled well, bilateral relations can maintain overall stability. If handled poorly, the two countries will have clashes and even conflicts, pushing the entire China-US relationship into a very dangerous situation. The two leaders also exchanged views on the situation in the Middle East, the Ukraine crisis, and the Korean Peninsula. US President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping visited the Temple of Heaven in Beijing, a 600-year-old UNESCO World Heritage Site, following their meeting. Jensen Huang, the founder and CEO of US tech giant Nvidia, has expressed his hope that Thursday's meeting between Chinese President Xi Jinping and US President Donald Trump can build on and improve ties between US and China. Huang is one of a number of top US entrepreneurs accompanying President Trump during his state visit to China from Wednesday to Friday. As the two presidents held talks on Thursday morning, Huang was one of several tech bosses including Tesla CEO Elon Musk and Apple's Tim Cook, who were seen entering the Great Hall of the People in central Beijing. In an interview with the China media group, as he walked through the venue, Huang hailed the relationship between Xi and Trump as wonderful and said he hopes the visit would enable the two sides to further strengthen bilateral ties based on it. Later, US President Donald Trump was hosted by his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping at a state banquet. Trump described the Chinese president as quote-unquote my friend in opening remarks at the state banquet Xi is hosting for the American leader.
Thank you again, President Xi, for this beautiful welcome, and tonight it is my honor to extend an invitation to you and Madam Peng to visit us at the White House this September 24th, and we look forward to it. And I'd now like to raise a glass and propose a toast to the rich and enduring ties between the American and Chinese people. It's a very special relationship, and I want to thank you again. This has been an amazing period of time. Thank you, President Xi.
The Chinese president says President Trump and he have been fully aware of the expectations of the two nations.
Now please join me in a toast to the development and prosperity of China and the United States and the well-being of our people, to the bright future of China-US relations and the friendship between the two peoples, and to the health of President Trump and all the friends present.
Coming back to some local news, Member of Parliament Dr. Harsha De Silva, currently in Washington, D.C., met with a delegation from the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank.
Dr. Harsha De Silva, chairman of the Committee on Public Finance, held discussions with Sonali Jain Chandra, deputy director of the IMF's Asia and Pacific Department, and Evan Papageorgiou, IMF mission chief for Sri Lanka. The MP also met with Nicole Klingon, the World Bank's director for the South Asian region in Washington, D.C. In a post on X, Dr. Harsha De Silva stated that he engaged in a technical dialogue regarding the constraints and solutions for moving beyond stabilization towards achieving an economic growth. On another note, a significant controversy has sparked on a Facebook post shared by Dr. De Silva while he was in Washington, D.C. In the post, he noted his readiness to accept any challenge on behalf of the country at the necessary moment. Dr. De Silva further emphasized that his political journey is resolutely moving toward one day leading the centre-right camp.
Has Dr. Harsha De Silva distanced himself from the Samgi Janabalavegya? Here are the responses given by MP Nalin Bandara when journalists questioned him regarding this today.
Within the Samagi Janabalavegya, we have an abundance of resources. It is up to the party to align those resources effectively. In that sense, Harsha De Silva is an extremely valuable asset to our party. We must work on how to utilize that asset, how to market that asset, and how to leverage that asset to gain power in the future. Someday in the future, even I might say that I am capable of leading this party and moving forward. So anyone can have aspirations. Harsha De Silva certainly possesses more than enough qualifications for that.
හර්ෂද සිල්වා කියන සම්පතින් විපක්ෂ නායක සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස මහත්තයවත් හරි වැඩක් ගත්තේ නැහැ. එහෙම නැත්නම් හරි නිසි තැනක් දුන්නේ නැහැ කියලාද ඔය කියන්නේ?
නෑ මම එහෙම කියන්නේ නෑ.
No, I'm not saying that. I believe that we have a specific time frame. By 2029, we must organize the party and definitely utilize the capabilities of leaders like Harshadi Silva. I believe Sajid Premadasa is currently serving as the party leader. Therefore, we have an ongoing dialogue regarding how to align Harshadi Silva and other second and third tier leaders in the future. In the future, you will be able to see how the party structure is being organized. We are of the opinion that the party must be modernized.
කොහොමද පෙළගස් වෙන්න කියලා පක්ෂය අලුත් වෙන්න ඕන කියන මතය අපි ඉන්නවා.
කොහොමද මෙතුමාගේ මේ ප්‍රකාශයෙන් පැහැදිලි වෙනව නේද යම් කලකිරීමකින් එතුමා ඉන්නේ කියලා?
නෑ නෑ එතුමාගේ කලකිරීමක් නෙවෙයි එතුමා කියන්නේ
it is not frustration on his part. He is saying that he is ready to take on any responsibility in the future. After all, I might also say someday that I am ready to take on any responsibility once I am prepared for it.
බාර ගන්න සූදානම් කියලා ඒකට සූදානම් නා.
Is the government extending invitations to representatives of the opposition? This is the response given by Minister Dr. Nalinda Jayatissa regarding the matter today.
Well, I thought they were discussing how to topple the government. If it turns out they are holding discussions just to save their own people, then that is their own problem. That is how it is. Regardless of their political ideologies, we will never hesitate to recruit people who work honestly and possesses that talent, ability and commitment to build this country. You may have observed this in the President's actions over the past year and a half. Even if someone didn't vote for us, or whatever their political views may be, if they are honestly committed to rebuilding the nation, we are ready to include them in this development and nation-building process. We are open to that. Otherwise, it's not a case of us simply taking people from those parties. If they truly believe that is what is happening, then sorting that out is their business. No, there is no such thing yet. There is no discussion. They might be thinking that way. However, we have 159 members in Parliament and hold a two-thirds majority. The opposition also has the opportunity to contribute to and further refine the optimistic proposals we introduce.
The Colombo Crimes Division apprehended Osman Gunasekara, alias Gampaha Osman, in connection with the ongoing investigation into the assassination of Ganimullah Sanjeeva. The suspect was arrested in the Sri Bodhi Road area of Gampaha by the Colombo Crimes Division and is being held under a 72-hour detention order for further interrogation.
Ganimullah Sanjeeva, whose real name was Sanjeeva Kumara Samararatna, was shot and killed while being produced in court from prison on the 19th of February last year inside a courtroom at the Colombo 5 Magistrates Court. Police stated that Osman Gunasekara was arrested on allegations of planning and conspiring the crime in collaboration with organized criminals operating overseas, as well as providing the firearm used in the killing and aiding and abetting the offense. Officers also recovered a foreign-manufactured repeater-type firearm without a valid license, along with 10 rounds of live ammunition and 2 magazines from the suspect's possession. The arrest was made following information revealed by other suspects currently in custody under detention orders in connection with the same murder case.
Sri Lanka's foreign minister called on Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko in Minsk today.
Господин министр, рад с вами встретиться сегодня.
Sri Lanka and Belarus are set to open a new chapter in bilateral relations following high-level talks between Foreign Minister Yoshitha Rajapaksa and Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko during an official visit. The discussions focused on strengthening the long-standing friendship between the two countries and developing a clear roadmap for cooperation across mutually beneficial sectors, including trade, industry, agriculture, education and people-to-people ties. Speaking to reporters after the meeting, Minister Herath said the visit marked a significant step forward, highlighting a series of constructive and productive discussions held with President Lukashenko, the Foreign Minister, senior officials, business representatives and members of the tourism sector. The discussions also explored potential collaboration in the precious stones sector. Sri Lanka, known globally for its gemstone industry, producing 70 to 80 varieties, including Ceylon sapphires, rubies, alexandrites and moonstones, is considering supplying raw stones for further processing in Belarus. In return, Sri Lanka is looking to increase imports from Belarus, particularly in mechanical engineering products, agricultural machinery and fertilizers.
Sri Lanka and Belarus have inked an air services pact and MOUs on education and healthcare during Minister Yoshitha Rajapaksa's official visit to Minsk. Sri Lanka and Belarus signed an air services agreement and 2 memoranda of understanding on higher education and healthcare, marking a significant step in strengthening bilateral relations during Foreign Minister Yoshitha Rajapaksa's official visit. Speaking at a joint media event at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Belarus, Minister Rajapaksa said the agreement and MOUs would lay a solid foundation for advancing cooperation between the two countries in the years ahead. The air services agreement between the two governments is expected to pave the way for regular flight operations by Belarusian carrier Belavia to Sri Lanka, enhancing tourism, business exchanges and overall connectivity. Minister Rajapaksa emphasized that Sri Lanka sees strong potential in tourism cooperation with Belarus, noting that improved connectivity could unlock untapped opportunities in the sector.
Tomorrow is a special day for the Kathragama Primary School in Galnava, Anuradhapura. The open-air theatre, which has been a dream for the children of this school for a long time, will become a reality tomorrow because of the Gammadda initiative.
About 295 students pursue their education at the Kathragama Primary School in Galnava, Anuradhapura. For a long time, all programs showcasing the talents of these children were held under a mango tree on a makeshift outdoor stage constructed using school desks and benches. The school's principal requested Gammadda to build an outdoor theatre to facilitate the students' learning activities and provide a proper platform for their skills. Accordingly, Gammadda took steps to fulfill this dream with the financial support of Simon Senaratne and his wife, residents of Colombo 5. This new outdoor theatre is scheduled to be officially handed over to the students tomorrow at an auspicious time. Meanwhile, providing Sri Lankan citizens the opportunity to refer to and study the Gammadda door-to-door research reports, these reports were handed over to the Galnava Public Library today. The event was attended by the General Secretary of Gammadda, Prasanna Athukorala, the Gammadda team and the Secretary of the Galnava Pradeshya Sabha.
The GeoAI for Disaster Resilience Symposium and Exhibition 2026 was held at the University of Colombo today.
The event brought together representatives from academia, government institutions and industry to discuss the use of GeoAI technology in disaster management and resilience building. The event was attended by Deputy Minister of Digital Economy, Engineer Erangavir Ratna, and the Charge d'Affaires of the US Embassy, Jane Howell.
The digitalization is crucial. We cannot solely rely on traditional sector. We have to adapt technology, we have to adapt tools. To do all this, we need the right policymakers, and this government is putting much emphasis on bringing digitalization to the country. GeoAI for disaster resilience. It talks about 3 things. Number 1, geospatial systems and data. Number 2, AI. Number 3 is disaster resilience. So very important topic. We need geospatial systems. We need geospatial data. We need geospatial competent resources to operate and come up with solutions, as well as use those solutions and get the right decision making done.
What truly makes this initiative impactful is the strong partnerships and the collaborative community it has created. And students and professionals from all over Sri Lanka have benefited from the public-private partnerships, like the use of American ArcGIS software distributed locally through GIS Solutions. Together, these partnerships have accelerated Sri Lanka's transition toward modern, data-driven disaster management. This collaboration shows how countries and institutions can share knowledge, apply technology, and strengthen national capacity while creating meaningful impact.
The symposium featured technical sessions, panel discussions, and an exhibition showcasing innovative GeoAI-based solutions. The program has trained 150 professionals and university students across Sri Lanka with the aim of promoting a safer and more resilient future through technology.
Up next on the corporate brief, the Council for Ceylon Women Entrepreneurs officially unveiled the CCWE Fashion Week and International Summit 2026 during a media briefing held in Colombo today.
The CCWE Fashion Week and International Summit 2026, the first event of its kind for women entrepreneurs in Sri Lanka and the South Asian region, was officially launched during a media briefing held in Colombo today. Spearheaded by the Council for Ceylon Women Entrepreneurs, or CCWE, this unique national initiative is regarded as the first ever fashion showcase in South Asia dedicated exclusively to women entrepreneurs. The event is scheduled to take place from the 16th of July till the 19th of July. The event aims to position Sri Lanka as a leader in sustainable and inclusive fashion while empowering women across sectors and regions through meaningful economic and social impact.
In sports news, the basketball team of the Malwana School for the Deaf made history at the All-Ireland Under-16 basketball tournament, securing a second division Group D victory.
To tell us more about this landmark achievement and more sports news, we now cross over to Naviksha Gunasekara.
Thank you once again, Juad. As you correctly said, in a landmark achievement, the Malwana School for Deaf made history at the All-Ireland Under-16 basketball tournament, securing a division Group D victory. Now, the victory carries added significance as it marks the first time in a local basketball tournament where a team of hearing impaired players defeated an able-bodied team of players. Now, let's take a look at their victorious play.
The basketball team of the Malwana School for the Deaf recorded a notable victory at the All-Ireland Under-16 basketball tournament. The team won a second division Group D match at the tournament, marking a significant achievement for the school as the first ever match victory recorded by the basketball players of School for the Deaf. The victory carries added significance as it marks the first known instance in local basketball tournament where a team of hearing impaired players defeated a team of able-bodied players. The team is competing in this year's tournament under the guidance of coach Grayson Anthony Silva.
The final rites of the late Premar Pinavala, former Secretary of the National Olympic Committee of Sri Lanka and a former Secretary of Sri Lanka Athletics, were observed today at the Borala Cemetery.
Premar Pinavala, who excelled in athletics from his school days at Christian College Kotte, went on to build a distinguished career in sports administration in Sri Lanka. He began his journey in 1963 when he was appointed President of the Sports Council at the University of Peradeniya. He later served as a committee member of Sri Lanka Athletics and in 1983 was appointed Secretary of the National Olympic Committee, a position he held for 15 years. Pinavala subsequently served as Secretary of Sri Lanka Athletics from 1998 to 2010 and was re-elected to the post in 2013 and 2017. He also represented Sri Lanka at the regional level as a member of the Asian Athletics Association between 2007 and 2011. He stepped down from sports administration in 2023 due to illness and passed away at the age of 88.
Sometimes the most profound conversations happen in total silence. Deep in the heart of Sabaragamu lies a sapphire mirage, a place where the chaos of the world simply fades into the mist.
Today on beautiful Sri Lanka, we take you into the middle of the serene blue waters of Samnala. And with that, we wrap up Primetime News for tonight. Thank you for watching. Good night.
Immerse yourself in the meditative stillness of these azure waters. Surrounded by a ring of mountains, Samnala appears like a sapphire mirage in the heart of Sabaragamu. For those seeking solace, this is a paradise. As you glide into the center of the reservoir on a kayak, the world around you seems to stand still. The golden sunbeams dancing on the mountain peaks, reflected in the ripples of your wake, will remain etched in your memory forever.